The ATBC is the main worldwide organization that brings together tropical ecologists and scientists and conservation scientists to discuss the issues around both the functioning and ecology and the conservation of tropical ecosystems.
I think it's also the largest organization in the world in terms of the largest organization for tropical biologists.
It's a diverse international association of people dedicated to the science and conservation of tropical ecosystems.
People often want to know, so how did the society actually start? And everything actually started in a botany meeting that was held in 1960 at the Fairchild Botanical Garden in Miami. They defined tropical botany as a major research priority. So as a result from that meeting, they decided to organize a follow-up meeting in a tropical country with many tropical participants. And this was organized in July 1962 at the University of West Indies in Trinidad. This conference included 30 participants, and the proceedings of that meeting constituted the first volume of the Bulletin of the Association of Tropical Biology, so ATB. It didn't have the C at the time. But the society was actually only incorporated in 1963, and so we actually established the beginning of the society in 1963.
So, across the global tropics, there are massive threats to biodiversity. And in order to develop effective management plans for conservation and develop appropriate priorities, we need more researchers. But typically, these are the parts of the world where people have the least access to training opportunities. And they need that training and those skills in order to do the research that's needed to develop those priorities. So the ATBC tries to fill in that gap by making sure that our meetings always have a complete program of other capacity building activities, from mentoring sessions to soft skills, things that teach students how to write grants, how to write CVs, how to present, all of the skills that are essential for them to be effective and confident researchers.
Also, we are really focusing on mentoring programs now. There's one happening as I speak. And providing opportunities for young researchers to learn from older, more established researchers. And this will be ongoing throughout the whole year, not just at the meeting. And we're hoping that this program will grow and become a real core of what we do.
The main program that I've been involved is mentoring. So in the past we've had one-on-one mentor-mentee relationships, and this year we have started a new program which we're calling Mentoring Circles, which is small group mentoring. So it's 2 to 5 mentors and 4 to 8 mentees. I think that this program will really help improve networking, but also increase the engagement of ATBC members throughout the year, so that there's a reason to be an ATBC member, and that reason is to have this communication among people throughout the world.
So the Conservation Committee is a group of scientists in ATBC whose focus is to develop a conservation policy for our organization. So every year the ATBC Conservation Committee attends the annual meeting, and we come up with a strategy or a declaration that comes from that meeting. And the declaration is about a topic of conservation interest.
Well, the ATBC has become very focused on conservation issues, particularly over the last 10 years or so. And it's driven mostly by the fact that we do some wonderful science, but we don't always communicate that science so that it gets out into the policy environment, where governments can use that science to protect the biodiversity that we have on this planet.
We also are trying to expand the regional chapters So we have had the Asia Pacific chapter, which has really developed and has their own annual meetings every year and other events and programs. So we are beginning now with an Africa chapter, and we are hoping that we will form also a Latin American chapter.
So the African chapter is like a child born out of necessity. The background is that we've had very few participation from the continent of both the students and the scientists. And this has been largely due to insufficient funding. ATBC is to serve the tropical country, and Africa is one of the very interesting tropical regions. And so that was the birth of the idea. How do we increase science communication to the tropical African countries? How do we that's increasing ATBC presence in the continent and the visibility of ATBC in the continent. And then this chapter is to serve as a platform.
Now, as part of the Africa chapter, which was very recently formed, obviously the birth of it was the beginning of ATBC 2011 in Arusha, but really in Montpellier last year we started the formation, where there was a large contingency of Africans from all over the continent. And so we started the Africa chapter, and this year we are continuing in Mexico. And our main goal is to basically foster conservation, to encourage capacity building, because that is something that is badly needed for conservation and science in the tropics, in particular on the continent. And in addition to that, I think that what's also important is to try to raise awareness about a lot of the difficulties that tropical biologists face in terms of conserving nature, which ultimately is very important for human livelihood.
And so what we intend to do is to, we are strategizing to have more programs on ground in different countries in Africa.
So I think one of the challenges that we face in trying to encourage membership and engagement in Africa is very evident, for example, here in ATBC in Mexico, because I think a lot of Africans would have loved to come, but the biggest limiting factor is not the will, but it is mostly the funding and the difficulty to travel. And some even got visas or failed to get visas to come. So it is really unfortunate, but it is something that we have to change in the world, because to be able to be with Latin American scientists, for example, and there are so many here, I think is a blessing, because tropical scientists can talk to tropical scientists. And for example, collaboration can be enhanced in this way, where, as you heard early this morning, it's really important to try to increase not necessarily north-south collaboration, but south-south collaboration, because that is where the tropics basically is in the south. And if people can hear from a Latin American scientist, a scientist from Asia, and a scientist from Africa sharing their experiences about a common theme, it just enhances what we can do in terms of humanity for the world.
All right, so the Asia Pacific chapter was conceived in 2006, and we had our first meeting in India in 2007. So the Asia Pacific chapter is a group of scientists who are members of ATBC who live in the Asia and Pacific region, and that includes many of the countries throughout the Indian subcontinent, all the way through the Southeast Asian archipelago and down to Australia and out to the Pacific. So it's a very big region. It covers many different language groups and religious groups, and also ecosystems. So we have many different types of biodiversity through that region and many different challenges facing their conservation.
Within the Asia Pacific region, we have a slightly different remit. The Asia Pacific is actually one of the most threatened parts of the world in terms of biodiversity loss. We have the highest rates of deforestation in the tropics and very high rates of hunting, as well as a whole gamut of other threats to biodiversity. So engaging in this region is very important, but it's very challenging because it's such a heterogeneous region. Every country speaks different languages, and traditionally that's meant there's been very little interaction between neighbouring countries. We've also got more involved in other elements of capacity building in the Asia-Pacific region. Both Tony and I run longer field courses, but this year we also instigated and collaborated with the university in Thailand to have a Young Scientist Conference.
So every year the Asia-Pacific chapter has a meeting in a different place. So in the last couple of years we've had meetings in Indonesia, in Cambodia, in Australia, and most recently in China.
So that very first meeting had only perhaps less than 100 people. Our most recent meeting, the second to last meeting was in Singapore, had close to 600 people. So we are really growing very well in the Asia Pacific, which is a good thing to see.
Sure, yeah. I've been the president of the SECSI, the Student and Early Career Scientist chapter of ATBC, for almost 4 years now. We basically were formed to reach out to students and try to bridge the gap between student and later stage mentors in the ATBC program. And pretty much our goal is to increase participation of students and early career scientists in the council or just in the meetings in general, in chapter meetings and in annual meetings. We're a pretty vibrant chapter. We're still fairly young, so we're always looking for new people to be involved in a lot of different ways. We're trying to capture this involvement at all different levels. So within the council, but also in the different activities that we run at the meetings too.
So the meetings are very important for communication of our research and for meeting other people who are working in similar questions and for developing collaborations. So the meetings are fantastic opportunities for networking, also for field trips and for visiting and learning about the region, and for meeting old friends and continuing the kinds of dialogues we have had for many years.
Well, I have involved in the organization of 2 meetings, one in Morelia in 2007 and now in Merida in this year. And that component of the young researchers is very important for the future of not only of this tropical biology field, but also in advanced science in general for conservation of this tropical biodiversity.
Being ATBC for me is like a great opportunity because I always wanted to come to the meeting, and this is the first time. It's something that is very interesting and surprised me because it's an opportunity first to know people that I've read like manuscripts about, like they are in the core, like in the top of the conservation of tropical forests and tropical environments. So it's like a good opportunity to learn.
Well, because I think we can communicate in many ways. I think these days communication is through many channels, but there is nothing like person-to-person communication. So being able to go to some scientific meeting in which you spend the whole day listening to talks about your research topic or your topic of interest is really invaluable because you learn about things 1-2 years before they're published, and then you talk to the authors, and then you can share your ideas and exchange. So that's really great.
And we're in a rotation, so we are now having the meeting here in Latin America. Next year it's going to be in Kuching in Malaysia, and the year after that it's going to be in Madagascar.
Well, I will organize the next global meeting in 2018 in Kuching, in Sarawak, Borneo. And the annual conference is probably the most important activity that the society holds every year. Is the moment that we all meet, like right now here in Merida.
So, and we just approved the 2020 meeting, which is going to be back in Latin America, in Cartagena. So we're going full circle, and we hope to continue that pattern around the world. The publication through Biotropica is a very big component of what we do.
Biotropica is the Society's journal. We publish over 100 articles a year describing some of the most exciting and interesting research in tropical biology today. It's a very important outlet, especially for the work of students. Over 40% of our articles have students as the first author. And most of our submissions and most of our articles are published by researchers based in the Global South, or at least in collaboration with researchers based in the Global South. So it plays a very unique role in the scientific publishing landscape because of its focus on student authors and researchers that are in parts of the world that have traditionally not been as expressive in scientific research, but Biotropica is a place where they've always had a very strong presence, doing some of the exciting and interesting research that they've been doing for many, many decades.
If you have the opportunity to come, you should try as much as possible. There are lots of ways to get funding to come here, even through the ATBC committee or even through local universities. I think it's a chance of knowing the best things that are happening in terms of research in the tropical conservation. It's like an opportunity to learn a lot. Like, I'm amazed, to be honest.
It's a great thing. Do it, definitely. It's helped me a lot in my career. I'm kind of a poster child maybe for ATBC in a few ways, but it's helped me branch out into new fields in my own career path in science, meet great people, and kind of cultivate my work along the way. The last 10 years I've been involved, so it's been wonderful.
I think this is a member society, and we need members to be more proactive and to feel that this is the place for them to share the views, to really communicate with the society, what kind of ATBC they want in the future, because it's going to be a time of change. In the next 5-10 years, the society is going to change a lot, and we need the members to be part of this change. So then, I encourage people to join the council, and what we want is vision, where we want to be and how we want to do that.
I would just encourage people to make it their ATBC. As councillors, as committee members, we are facilitators. We're not there for ourselves. We are there to make it something for the society and for the regions that we care about. But we can't do that unless people engage with us and tell us what they want to see. What are their priorities? What are their needs? What are the gaps? Where are the areas that we're still not reaching? And how could we help build those regions? So I would encourage anyone who's watching this to come and talk to us. We're all humans, we all care. Showing that people can do it. Showing that even as a single individual, we can often make a difference. And that difference might be the only thing that is saving an area of rainforest with endemic species, or saving an individual species, or even just making the public care. If you're watching, get involved, interact, talk to us, and take part in as much as you can. And if you want to get more involved, come and talk to us about that too, because we're all just conservation scientists and we all have new perspectives to bring.
Join the family, and you'll have a great time. Come to our meetings, submit your articles to Biotropica.
Join the ATBC. It's a fantastic place to interact, to talk, to learn, to get inspired, and to make friendships and to make partnerships for the rest of your life. So join the ATBC.